At a high school pep rally, Julia drops off her 15-year-old daughter, Brooklyn, who's now popular and dating the quarterback. Julia, a nurse who came straight from a night shift, waves proudly with a tired smile and her hospital scrubs still on. Brooklyn spots her and rolls her eyes. When a friend asks, "Who's that lady waving?" Brooklyn mutters, "Oh God, that's my mum. She's embarrassing." Julia hears it. Everyone laughs. Julia's face doesn't fall. Not yet, but her eyes dim. She walks back to her car in silence. She drives away to nap before her second job, unaware this day will crack everything open. Julia was once a pre-med student with big dreams of becoming a surgeon. She studied hard, stayed up late reading textbooks, and believed she could make a real difference in the world. Back then, she was engaged to her college boyfriend, Alex. She thought they would build a life together. Everything changed when Julia found out she was pregnant with Brooklyn. She was scared but hopeful. She believed Alex would stand by her, but instead, he cheated. When she told him she was pregnant, he pulled away. He said it wasn't the right time, and then he left. Julia was just 21. She lost her scholarship when she dropped out of school to raise her baby. Her dreams of becoming a surgeon faded fast. There was no money, no support, just a baby who needed her. She moved into a tiny one-bedroom apartment and worked late-night jobs to survive. She worked hard, harder than she thought possible. She became a nurse instead of a doctor. Not what she dreamed of, but it paid the bills. She worked nights in the emergency room, and when that wasn't enough, she took a second job at a senior care home. Over the years, she missed holidays, birthdays, even school plays, just trying to keep a roof over their heads. Now Julia is 55. Her hands are tired. Her back aches most days. She hasn't taken a vacation in over a decade, but she doesn't complain. She's proud of how far she's come. She raised her daughter, Brooklyn, on her own. She never asked for anything from Alex. Brooklyn is 15 now, bright, strong, and beautiful. She goes to a private charter school on a scholarship. The school is full of wealthy kids who wear expensive clothes, have their own cars, and go on trips abroad. Brooklyn doesn't live like that, but she tries to blend in. She never invites her friends over to their small apartment. She acts like her mum is just busy whenever someone asks about her. Julia notices it, the quiet distance, the way Brooklyn's eyes shift when she sees her mum in scrubs, the way she avoids saying where she lives or what her mum does. Julia understands. High school is tough, fitting in matters, but it still hurts. Julia's best friend is Lena, a woman she met in college decades ago. Lena went on to become a psychologist. She's calm and wise, the kind of friend who always knows what to say. She reminds Julia that she's more than a nurse, more than a mother. "You matter too," Lena often says. Julia tries to believe it. At Brooklyn's school, there are parents like Mrs. Carver, the mother of Brooklyn's wealthy friend, Claire. Mrs. Carver drives a luxury SUV, hosts fancy dinners, and always has perfect hair. She smiles when she sees Julia, but her words are sharp underneath. "It must be hard raising a teenager when you work so much," she once said. Julia just smiled politely and walked away. And then there's Alex, Brooklyn's father. He's still out there, living in the suburbs with his new wife and 2 young sons. His house is big. His life looks perfect in photos. He only shows up around Brooklyn's birthday or Christmas, sending gifts or short texts. He hasn't been there for the hard years. He's a stranger who shares DNA. Brooklyn used to ask about him when she was little. Julia would always be honest, but kind. "He wasn't ready to be a parent," she'd say. "But you were never the mistake." These days, Brooklyn doesn't talk about him much, but sometimes Julia sees her scrolling through social media, looking at pictures of Alex's new family. She knows that look. She's seen it in the mirror. It's the quiet question. Why wasn't I enough for him to stay? Julia has no easy answer. She just keeps going. She pulls on her scrubs, ties back her greying hair, and heads into work. She helps strangers who are scared and hurting. She lifts patients twice her size. She works all night, comes home sore, and still finds a way to make breakfast for her daughter. She's tired, but she never gives up. Everything she has, every wrinkle, every scar, every missed moment, she gave to make sure Brooklyn had a chance. That's all she's ever wanted, for her daughter to have a better life. But lately, it's starting to feel like Brooklyn is slipping away, like Julia's sacrifices are invisible, like she's becoming a shadow in her own story. That's about to change. Brooklyn gets invited to a weekend party at a huge lake house. It belongs to one of the richest families at her school. There will be a private chef, a boat, music, and no parents around. Everyone is talking about it. It's the biggest event of the year. Brooklyn runs into the kitchen after school, excited. "Mum, Claire invited me to her lakehouse this weekend. It's only a few girls. Everyone's going. Please say yes." Julia looks up from the sink. She's still in her nurse scrubs, her face tired after another long shift. "A lakehouse? Where? Who's going to be watching you girls?" Brooklyn rolls her eyes. "Claire's cousin. She's 20. It's not a big deal, Mum. It's safe." Julia shakes her head slowly. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. I don't feel good about this. And honestly, we can't afford a trip like that right now." Brooklyn's smile fades. "It's free. Claire's family is covering it. That doesn't change the fact that I don't know these people. You're still my responsibility." Brooklyn explodes. "This is why I hate having a broke mum. You ruin everything. You don't even try." Julia flinches, her heart breaking. "Brooklyn." But her daughter is already walking away, slamming her bedroom door shut behind her. That night, Julia works another shift at the hospital. Her body aches, but her mind keeps going back to what Brooklyn said. She tries not to cry in the staff lounge. At home, Brooklyn lies in bed, angry and embarrassed. She doesn't want to be the only one not at the party, so she does something she hasn't done in a long time. She messages her dad. "Brooklyn, hey, it's me. Can you talk?" To her surprise, Alex replies right away. "Alex, of course, everything okay?" She tells him about the party. She says Julia won't let her go. Alex replies like a hero. "Alex, that sounds fun. I trust you. I'll talk to your mum if you want." Brooklyn doesn't tell him that she's not allowed. She just packs a bag the next day and leaves with Claire, pretending Julia said yes. She promises herself she'll be back before anyone notices. But the weekend doesn't go as planned. On the second night, there's a fight between two teens. Someone breaks a bottle. A girl gets a small cut. Someone calls an ambulance just to be safe. The police come too. Brooklyn panics. She didn't expect this. The school contacts parents. Julia is working a double shift at the hospital and doesn't see her phone right away. Alex answers first. He shows up in nice clothes, calm and smiling. He tells the school he's Brooklyn's father. He even brings coffee for the principal. Everyone is impressed. "Brooklyn's dad is so responsible," someone says. Julia finally gets the message and rushes over, still in her scrubs, her hair a mess, her face pale from exhaustion. She's the last to arrive. Brooklyn is sitting with Alex, laughing at something he said. Julia walks up, heart racing. "Brooklyn, are you okay?" Brooklyn nods, looking away. "Yeah, I'm fine." The staff barely notices Julia. One teacher gives her a short nod. Her father handled everything. Julia says nothing. She stands there, invisible, as Alex shakes hands and takes credit for showing up. Later that night, Julia drives Brooklyn home in silence. Brooklyn stares out the window, arms crossed. Julia finally speaks. "You lied to me." Brooklyn doesn't respond. Julia swallows hard. "You could have been hurt. Anything could have happened. Do you think I enjoy saying no to you? I say no because I care." Still, no answer. Julia looks at her daughter and realizes something. Brooklyn doesn't see her anymore. Not really. Not the tired hands, the missed meals, the sacrifices. Not the woman who gave up everything for her. All she sees is someone who's not enough. And now Alex, the man who left, is the one getting praise. Julia grips the steering wheel tighter and keeps driving. Something has shifted. After the party, Brooklyn starts talking to her dad, Alex, more often. He sends her funny texts, buys her new shoes, and even drops off her favorite iced coffee at school. He tells her she's special. He tells her he's proud of her. For the first time in her life, Brooklyn feels like she has a real dad. Julia notices the change right away. Brooklyn talks about Alex like he's some kind of hero. "Dad says he might get me a tablet for school," she says one night. "He said I should try modeling. He thinks I'm really pretty." Julia listens, trying to stay calm. "Just remember," she says gently, "he leaves when it gets hard. He always has." Brooklyn rolls her eyes. "You're just jealous." "I'm not," Julia replies quietly. "I just want you to see things clearly." But Brooklyn doesn't want to hear it. Over the next few weeks, she spends more time at Alex's house. His place is huge, 4 bedrooms, a backyard pool, and a spotless kitchen. His wife, Melanie, is polite but distant. Brooklyn doesn't care. She likes the quiet, the clean furniture, the way the fridge is always full. Back home, Julia still works 2 jobs. Their apartment smells like old takeout and hand sanitizer. The heater breaks again. The laundry piles up. Julia still manages to cook dinner every night. Simple food like rice, beans, or eggs on toast. She's proud of how she makes things stretch. But Brooklyn starts seeing things differently. One night, she records a TikTok. In it, she shows Julia's tired hands stirring a pot of noodles. She adds a joke caption. "When your mum serves struggle meals every night." She laughs as she films it. It goes viral. The next morning, Julia is at work when a younger nurse shows her the video. "Hey, isn't this your daughter? This video's everywhere." Julia watches in silence. Her heart drops. She doesn't say anything to Brooklyn right away. She just goes home and puts the leftovers in the fridge. Her daughter never comes out of her room that night. The next day, Julia calls Alex. "We need to talk," she says firmly. They meet at a coffee shop. Julia wears her scrubs. He wears a suit. "I saw the video," she says. "She humiliated me. And you just keep spoiling her like she's 5. You're not helping." Alex sips his coffee. "I'm just trying to be a father now. You had your time." Julia's jaw tightens. "You think 15 years of silence counts as my time?" "She wants me around. I'm not going to say no." "You don't get to come in now and play hero," she says, voice shaking. "You don't know her. You don't know what she's been through. She's a teenager," he says calmly. "She's just figuring things out." But Julia knows it's more than that. Brooklyn is pulling away fast, and Alex is letting her drift. Soon, Brooklyn starts skipping school. She ignores her mum's texts. Her grades drop. Julia gets calls from the school counselor. "She's distant," the woman says. "We're worried." At a parent meeting, Mrs. Carver sits beside the principal, arms crossed, fake smiling. "Maybe your mental state is part of the issue," Mrs. Carver says, her voice smooth and sharp. "Brooklyn seems a bit unstable lately." Julia clenches her hands in her lap. "I'm doing my best." Mrs. Carver nods slowly. "Of course." Later, Julia cries in her car, head resting on the steering wheel. She feels like she's losing everything. Brooklyn, her job, her peace. It's all slipping through her fingers. That night she calls Lena, her best friend. Lena listens quietly, then says, "You've carried so much, Jules. You need someone to help carry you for once. Please see a therapist." Julia hesitates. "I don't have time." "You have to make time," Lena says. "You're still a person too." So Julia goes. Once a week, she sits in a quiet office and speaks out loud the things she's never said. The therapist gives her a journal. Write everything. Don't hold back. So Julia writes. She writes about sleepless nights, about holding Brooklyn as a baby during fevers, about late rent notices, about missing her graduation ceremony because her shift ran late. She writes about fear, about shame, about pride. She writes a long, painful letter to Brooklyn, one she never plans to send. It says, "You think I'm just a tired old woman in scrubs, but you don't know the nights I stayed up so you could sleep safe. You don't know the jobs I worked just to buy your school books. I gave you everything I had, and I'm still giving. I don't want your praise. I just want your eyes to open." Julia puts the letter in a drawer. She doesn't know if she'll ever show it to her daughter. Then one day, Brooklyn says the words Julia feared most. "I want to live with Dad for a while." Julia's mouth goes dry. "Are you sure?" Brooklyn nods. "His house is calmer. He listens to me, and I can focus better over there." Julia wants to scream, to beg, to say no, but she doesn't. She just nods. "If that's what you want." Brooklyn packs her things quietly. Julia helps fold clothes, even though her hands are shaking. When Brooklyn leaves, the apartment feels empty in a new kind of way, like something vital has gone missing. Julia sits alone in the living room. The lights are off. Her food gets cold. The apartment is silent. She doesn't chase after Brooklyn. She lets her go. But deep inside, her heart is breaking. One rainy afternoon, Brooklyn was home alone at her dad's house. Melanie had taken her 2 little boys out for the day, and Alex was on a work call in the basement. Brooklyn was bored, so she wandered around the house. She walked into the spare bedroom where some of her things were stored. In one corner sat the small box of old papers her mum had given her to keep. School photos, baby drawings, and a few dusty folders. She hadn't looked through them before. Out of curiosity, she opened one folder. Inside were letters, handwritten. All of them were from her mum. The first one began, "Alex, Brooklyn has a high fever. I've taken her to the clinic but can't afford the medicine. Please help us." It was dated when Brooklyn was just 3 years old. Another one said, We're about to be evicted. I'm working double shifts, but it's not enough. Brooklyn needs stability. Please don't ignore this. And another. She's in the hospital again. Asthma attack. I'm scared. We need you. Brooklyn's eyes filled with tears as she flipped through the pages. The dates stretched across years, all written with hope, all unanswered. She felt a tight pain in her chest. Why didn't he respond? She reached deeper into the box and pulled out a plain black journal. It looked old, with bent edges and a worn cover. Curious, she opened it. At first, she didn't understand what she was reading, but slowly, as she turned each page, it became clear. It was her mother's journal. In it, Julia wrote about everything. How she used to cry while folding tiny clothes. How she worked back-to-back shifts and napped in her car. She wrote about feeling invisible at Brooklyn's school events, about skipping meals so Brooklyn could eat, about holding Brooklyn's tiny hand in the hospital at 3 a.m. One entry read, "I sold my favorite painting today. It hurt, but we needed rent. Brooklyn wanted a new backpack. I smiled when I gave it to her. She never knew." Another said, "I'm so tired, but when she laughs, it makes it worth it. She's the reason I keep going." Brooklyn closed the journal and sat still for a long time. Her throat hurt. Her chest felt heavy. Everything her mom had ever done. And she had laughed at her online, called her embarrassing, chosen Alex, the man who ignored them for 15 years, over the woman who gave up everything for her. She suddenly felt sick. Just then, her phone buzzed. A news alert popped up. Local businessman Alex Trent investigated for tax fraud. Brooklyn blinked. She clicked the link. The article said Alex had been hiding money from the IRS. Some employees from his business were also accusing him of lying and cheating them. There were whispers of another affair. Brooklyn stood up, heart pounding. She ran downstairs. "Dad!" she called. He turned, phone in hand. "Hey, sweetheart, what's up? Is it true?" she asked. "About the money? About the affair?" Alex sighed. "Don't believe everything you read. But is it true?" He didn't answer. And in that silence, Brooklyn saw it clearly. His charm, his smooth voice, his fake promises. It was all a mask. Her real parent, the one who showed up when life was ugly and hard, had always been her mum. That night, she packed her bag without a word. She didn't wait for a ride. She took the bus. It was late when she reached her mum's apartment. She knocked softly. The door opened. Julia stood there, surprised. "Brooklyn?" Brooklyn dropped her bag and rushed forward. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she fell into her mother's arms. "I'm so sorry," she sobbed. "I didn't know, Mum. I didn't know." Julia wrapped her arms around her daughter, holding her tight. Her hands didn't shake. Her heart didn't race. She had waited for this, for years. "It's okay," she whispered. "You're home." They stood in the doorway, mother and daughter, with nothing between them but truth. No fancy houses, no lies, just love. Julia started working fewer hours at the hospital. It was hard at first, less money, more worries, but she knew something had to change. After talking with Lena, she finally took a deep breath and signed up for part-time nursing school again. It had been years since she was in a classroom. Her hands shook on the first day, but deep down, something felt right. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was moving forward. At home, Brooklyn was different too. She had moved back in fully. No more visits to her dad's big house. No more pretending she didn't see her mum at school. Something in her had changed since reading those letters and journals. The way she looked at Julia, there was respect now, and love. One morning, Brooklyn posted a video on TikTok. It started like this. "A while ago, I made fun of my mum online. I called her embarrassing for doing her best. And now I want to say something different. I want to say I was wrong. My mum isn't embarrassing. She's the strongest person I know. She worked 2 jobs, gave up her dreams, and still showed up for me every day." The video went viral. Again. But this time, people weren't laughing. They were crying. Many shared their own stories of hard-working mums. Some even thanked Brooklyn for being honest. A few weeks later, Brooklyn was asked to give a short speech at her school's assembly. The theme was gratitude. She stood on the stage, looked out at the crowd, and smiled. "My mum never missed a school play, even when she was running on no sleep. She made me grilled cheese on nights we couldn't afford much more. She held my hand in the dark and still let me go when I thought I didn't need her. I used to be embarrassed. But now, my mum is everything I want to be." People clapped. Some stood. Mrs. Carver, sitting in the second row, gave a polite smile. Later, she sent Julia a short message. "Nice speech. I hope things continue to improve for you." Julia read it and smiled, but she didn't reply. She didn't need to. She had nothing to prove. At home, things weren't perfect, but they were better. Julia and Brooklyn talked more. They laughed again. They cried sometimes too, but now they were honest with each other. There were no big dramatic moments, no movie-like scenes, just small, real ones. Like the night Brooklyn cooked dinner for the first time. The spaghetti was overcooked. The garlic bread was burnt. The salad came out of a bag. But when she set the table and said, "Dinner's ready," Julia almost cried. She sat down, took a bite, and smiled. "It's perfect," Brooklyn grinned. "It's terrible," Julia laughed. "Maybe, but it's still perfect." Brooklyn started going to therapy, just like Julia. It wasn't easy to open up at first, but it helped. She learned how to deal with anger, confusion, and guilt. Slowly, she stopped carrying it all alone. Julia picked up her old paintbrushes again. She hadn't touched them in years. At first, the lines were shaky, but the more she painted, the steadier they became. It felt like finding a part of herself she thought was lost. Sometimes, she painted late at night, after homework and dishes. Brooklyn would sit nearby, working on school assignments, or just watching. Their home was small, but it was full of something they hadn't had in a long time: peace. They still had bills. Julia still had to juggle work and school. But now, they had each other, and that was enough. They were healing, slowly, together. A year later, Brooklyn's school won a big state award for excellence. It was a proud day for students and their families. The school invited parents to come on stage with their kids during the ceremony. The auditorium was full, lights were bright, music played, and people clapped as students walked across the stage. Julia arrived early that day. She came straight from her night shift, still wearing her hospital scrubs. Her hair was pulled back in a loose bun. She looked tired, but happy. She found a seat in the front row and sat quietly, holding her phone in one hand, her eyes on the stage. When Brooklyn's name was called, she stood up tall. Her friends looked around, searching for her dad or someone else, fancy, to come with her. But Brooklyn smiled and said clearly, "I'm walking with my mum." She looked toward the front and saw Julia waving, just like she always used to. But this time, Brooklyn didn't roll her eyes or look away. She smiled back, wide and proud. Then she walked straight to her mum, took her hand, and together they stepped onto the stage. People clapped, some smiled, and some finally saw Julia for who she truly was. Not just a tired nurse in old scrubs, not a struggling mum, but a woman full of quiet strength. Brooklyn didn't let go of her hand. When they stood at the center of the stage, Brooklyn leaned close and whispered, "Thank you for everything, Mom." Julia didn't cry. She just held her daughter's hand tighter, and in that moment, with lights shining down and everyone watching, Brooklyn didn't feel ashamed anymore. She felt proud, because now she knew the truth. Her mom was never embarrassing. She was a hero all along. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more emotional and powerful stories just like this. Drop a comment below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. And don't miss these must-watch videos right here on the screen. Each one will move you in a different way. Thanks so much for watching. See you in the next one.